What's the point? I mean, I hear you. You're saying they're trying to create a crisis because when you create a crisis, then you can affect change. What is the change you think they're trying to do right now to us?
Yes, well, actually, we have to look at the picture, the big picture of what has happened since 2020. And on the one hand, the central bankers have come out since 2020 very quickly, already in March 2020, with some public statements about what they want to do. And surprise, surprise, they want to introduce CBDCs. So that is clearly one goal. Now, in order to introduce central bank digital currencies, what they need is digital IDs. And clearly, they've been working backwards from their goal. How can we introduce CBDCs? We need an excuse. And then work backwards. What do we need for that? We need digital IDs. Well, again, how do we introduce digital IDs? We need another excuse to do that. Well, the so-called pandemic delivered a great excuse. Well, at least they thought. I mean, it wasn't really very convincing, but somehow they argued that you needed to be injected with this experimental substance, and then somehow you needed, in order to enter any restaurant or shop, you needed digital ID confirming that you've been injected. When, of course, it was very quickly clear that this injection was not actually slowing transmission or preventing illness, and had a lot of risks attached to them. So the justification wasn't very strong, but they definitely pushed these digital IDs, the passports, very hard, and again in a coordinated fashion. So you see where this is going. And the goal is actually on the monetary side. That is the prize they're aiming for. They're aiming for CBDCs connected to digital IDs. And that means we're talking about the most totalitarian control system in human history.
The only way to answer those questions is to practically test it with your local domestic and commercial banks to understand what does this mean. So from our perspective, I mean, we're an infrastructure provider. We create the issuance of CBDCs and the interoperability of CBDCs with payment systems. And the common themes are around, why a digital pound, why a digital euro, why a digital dollar. And it's an evolution of money, and cash is always going to be there, as Tom was just saying, but having a digital form of cash, a new form of smart money, can really unlock a lot of benefits to consumers and businesses, because we're right now relying on a traditional architecture of push and pull payments, and having logic built in by having the ability to program money to do innovative things is going to really transform how GDP can grow, how businesses can reduce workflows, and how consumers can spend a new form of money. So we're at the beginning of that thinking, but the next step is to practically test it with your local domestic banks.
I want people to go read Executive Order 14067. Executive Order 14067, signed by Uncle Joe, the 8th of March of 2022, and it went into effect 13 December 2022.
COVID it accelerates the process of digitalization and automatization. It legitimizes the deployment of mass surveillance, and it makes surveillance go under your skin.
The nature of this CBDC, what is it actually going to look like? They never talk about that. Right. But I heard one European central banker tell me what it's going to look like. And it was around this large, and would be implanted under your skin.
CBDC. If that happens, we're done.
China's taken over, and China, I heard a couple of people say, well, the dollar will never lose the dollar standard. Are they kidding?
Now the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have announced plans to develop a new currency.
to turn off your access to your own money. So you will not be able to buy or sell anything. This is what I mean about how dangerous it is.
You're shut out of the economy.
You are shut out of the economy. And of course, it's all subjective, and it will all be in the hands of these Marxists, right? And so you and I won't be able to buy anything. This is why it's so dangerous, because this spells the end of your economic freedom. Yeah. And I'm not sure the American people are really paying close attention to it. I'm glad Senator Cruz and some others, Governor DeSantis, they're paying attention to it. But this is moving very fast down the track. And we need more leaders on the Republican side to stand up, and even responsible Democrats to say, look, this is not the path for the United States. Because if we continue to go down the path, you're going to lose all of your economic freedom, and economic power will be centralized in the hands of the very, very few.
And I think there's a lot of conversation about a tax on freedom, a tax on democracy, right? And you look at all those things. Do you think this is one of the greatest threats that we face in the country, is the digitization of the dollar by the Fed?
Yes, 100%. And it's moving along a parallel track with the de-dollarization movement, where you have countries now that are dumping the dollar. It's moving pretty fast. All Saudi Arabia has to do is say, you know what, we're going to start trading oil in different currencies rather than the dollar, to have a complete global and certainly American economic collapse. And that, in a way, they want to instigate that, Sean, because if we have a true economic implosion, they'll ride in as the rescuers with a central bank digital currency.
And we were talking about that in the last segment. I'm frightened that we could lose the reserve status with the dollar. What that does for our economy, a lot of economists don't. But you look at, again, a $32 trillion debt on the way to $50 trillion in the next 10 years. The Fed has a balance sheet of almost $9 trillion. This is disastrous policy to think that the dollar is going to remain the reserve currency for much longer.
Yeah, and if that goes away, then you're going to have the kind of economic implosion we have not seen since the Great Depression. And what does that mean to you and me? That means astronomical inflation. Yes. That makes today's inflation look like child's play. This will be Weimar Republic kind of hyperinflation. And really the only solution to it is going back to the gold standard, which, you know, would be difficult to do, but you've got to have our currency back.